What's happening? Welcome back to the hot seat. Getting some of my notes together, man. Um, Playing a little Ti, getting the juices flowing. What's going on? What's going on? If you were looking at this face and listening to this voice, you are officially back on the hot seat. Man, y'all know what we do on the hot seat, man. We set somebody's ass on fire. Who we gonna set on fire today, man? We are going to set my Dallas Cowboys on fire. Um, I think there's a lot to talk about. It's going to be somewhat of a season preview, just giving you all my ideas, my thoughts on what's going to be a successful season, what could lead to a successful season, and what could possibly derail the Dallas Cowboys. So, without any further ado, paying homage to the ghosts over my left and my right shoulder, let's talk about it, man. This video, you'll probably see this video probably after the game Sunday night against the Giants. So I apologize for the late uploading of it, but better late than never. I waited as long as I did because I wanted to see or at least make sure that Zeke was going to be on the team. Make sure he had got signed. I did two shows about that previously about what I thought about Zeke holding out and what I thought about what the Dallas Cowboys should do during the holdout or how they should go about signing him or whatever. But they did the right thing. They gave the man the money. They gave what he was worth. And listen, that said, this year the Dallas Cowboys have no excuse, and I mean none. They have no excuse. When you look at the team top to bottom, there's talent, there's experience, there's a little playoff experience, and there's depth at a lot of key positions. Dallas has no excuse this year. You, I think that when you take a step back and you look at things over, look at the grander scheme of things, this team is young. This team is really young. You look at you got Zach Martin who's 28. You got Wolf Hunter, Leighton Vander Esch, who's 23. You got Jalen Smith, who's 24. You got Amari Cooper, who's 25. You got Zeke, 23. You got Dak Prescott, 25. You got Bryron Jones, who's 26. You got D. Law, the leader of the Hot Boys, who's 27. I think that when you look at the fact that, okay, since they are so young, the window's going to be open for an extended period of time. No, sir. That's not what that means. The window to win is right now. And I think there is more pressure on this team than teams in the past. I think the 2014 team was great. I think they were talented. I think they got screwed. I think a lot of people would agree with me in that regard, but who cares? I think the 2017 was really, really talented. But they didn't get the job done. And we can have a discussion as it relates to why they didn't get the job done and why we think they didn't. But right now, 2019, this is one of the best Dallas Cowboy teams I've seen, period, up and down. You talking about talent? As far as like 10 first-round picks on this team. Like, let that sink in. I haven't done any research as it relates to what other team has 10 first-round picks, but that got to be top 5 in the league, if not top 3. And if you look at guys who either had first-round grades or were projected to go in the first round, that would give them 14. When you look at Sean Lee before he tore his ACL in college, you look at what happened with Randy Gregory when him failing drug tests. He was a top 5 talent. He was projected to go top 5. You look at Jalen Smith from Notre Dame when he had that horrific knee injury, and that's 13. You look at Lyle Collins coming out of LSU. He had that issue when I think it was something as it relates to a murder incident or something domestic. I don't really recall. But you have 14 potential first-round picks on one team. One. Let's not even begin to discuss how many players you have who are top 5, top 10 at their position. You look at Zeke, arguably the best running back in the league. You look at Zach Martin, largely regarded as the best right guard in the league, or probably the best guard in the league, period. Before Travis Frederick missed last year, he was a top 2, top 3 center in the league. Tyron Smith isn't who we remember him to be, but He's still an elite tackle. You're still talking top five at his position. You can argue Amari Cooper being top 10. D Law, top five, top six pass rush in the league, possibly. You look at the cornerback. I'm sorry, the linebacker tandem of Leighton Van Der Esch and Jalen Smith. That's probably one of the top three linebacking tandems in the league. They are not hurting for talent. You look at Anthony Brown and the kid from Michigan, whose name escaped me at the moment, Lewis. Anthony Brown, one of the top slot corners in the league. Um, I give Byron Jones top 10, maybe top 12 cornerback in the league. This team ain't hurting for talent, man. They are not hurting for talent. If you look at one person who has the most pressure, it's Dak Prescott, Dakota Rain Prescott. And here's why. As a quarterback in this league, he has his deficiencies, right? Some argue he holds the football too long. Some argue he has inaccuracies throwing the football downfield. Some argue he doesn't have a high IQ. But at the end of the goddamn day, he strap up his boots, he bring his lunch pail, and you have a fucking warrior at quarterback. He gonna bring it every fucking week. You don't have to debate that. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to have in the back of your mind, am I going to get my A game out of my quarterback? He's going to give you everything he has. But this is the same guy who was rumored to ask for $40 million a year. It's the same guy who was rumored to turn down $30 million a year. This is a guy who's looking at the likes of a former MVP candidate and Carson Wentz get paid. This is a guy who's looking at the former number one overall pick and a Super Bowl quarterback, a Super Bowl participant at quarterback, and Jared Goff get paid. You're looking at a former Super Bowl winning quarterback and Russell Wilson get paid. You saw where Kirk Cousins got. He wants his bread. Here's your time to show that you earned it. Here's the time that you show that you deserve it. Because if the only thing that's going to derail this team, injuries. That's it. Last year going into the season, they had no clear number one receiver. They were going to do receiver by committee, which was a huge mistake. I was against them when they released Dez Bryant. You could argue he's part of the reason why they released Dez Bryant. Listen, man, the narrative about Dez Bryant when he got released was he could no longer get separation from wide receivers. I've never known that to be part of Dez Bryant's game. As far as I know, he had such great chemistry with Tony Romo. Romo knew how to throw him open. And he was able to use his physical gifts, his God-given talents, to look as if he gained separation. That was never part of Dez Bryant's game. Well, Dak Prescott isn't that advanced as a quarterback. He doesn't know how to throw a guy like a Dez Bryant open. You could argue that he's the reason why he got released because it seems as if Dez Bryant was on the decline. At least statistically he was. But what he did well, he still had those talents. So when you look at the fact that you didn't have a wide receiver going into last year, right? Dallas started off the season 3-5. I wouldn't even call that an offense. That shit looked fucking terrible. It looked really bad. You go get Amari Cooper and everything, and all of a sudden things change, right? Your offense is rolling. You have to take an extra man out of the box for opposing defenses to account for a guy like Amari Cooper. And here you are. Second round of the playoffs, losing to the eventual NFC representative in the Super Bowl. Excuse me. If he doesn't have the most pressure on him as it relates to what you see on this team, I don't know who does. Now it's time for you to go out and earn what you say you deserve, or what is being reported that you say you deserve. Because there are no excuses for it. You got a security blanket back with Jason Witten coming out of retirement, which I'm not really a fan of, but that's neither here nor there. You have one of the top three, if not the best offensive lines in the league, and you got Travis Frederick coming back. If he doesn't improve on being able, because you have weapons everywhere. You look at the fact that Cole Beasley left, where you replaced him with a Randall Cobb. I'd argue that's an upgrade. You still have Tavon Austin. You look at Michael Gallup is prime and poised to have a breakout season this year. There is no excuse for this Dallas Cowboy football team, and their success is going to hinge on what Dak Prescott can do, will do, and probably what he's not able to do at quarterback. Um, don't get me wrong; they have a murderous row of a goddamn schedule. I don't know many teams that have to play a New Orleans Saints, a New England Patriot, a Rams, and a Chicago Bears. But who gives a shit? Like to say that they have a difficult schedule to me is a moot point. Only because when you draft as well as Dallas does, and just as important when you develop as well as Dallas does, when you have paid the money that Dallas does, and you are going to pay more money that Dallas is going to have to pay to keep some of these guys in the fold, I don't want to hear shit about the goddamn schedule. Fuck the schedule. I've paid you guys all of this money. I'll put you all in a position to win. I don't see. There may be one weakness, something in a whole. There may be one weakness on this team, and that's wherever Jeff Heath is. I don't know if Donovan Wilson's going to take his job or not, but as it stands right now, he's slotted to be the starting strong safety. Other than that, what you got? I mean, just as a weakness, you have depth on the offensive line. Everybody likes the kid Pollard. You have a fleet of wide receivers. You have depth on the defensive line. You have Sean Lee as a emergency backup at linebacker. You have a few DBs, a few nice DBs as well. I can't find an issue, or I can't find a reason why this Dallas Cowboy team shouldn't contend for a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. Again, fuck the schedule. I understand it's not the easiest, but who gives a shit? You lined up and play who's in front of you. If you are as good as you say you are, if you've accumulated the amount of talent that Dallas has over the last 6 to 7 years, then it's time to put up a shut up. Give a shit about none of that other stuff. I don't want to hear about Jason Garrett I don't want to hear about Jason Garrett holding the team back. Now, we may be able to have an argument about Kellen Moore being the new offense coordinator. But even if we do, I don't know how fucking hard it is to get Zeke the ball and get the fuck out the way. Because that's what he's getting paid to do. Find more creative ways to A, get Zeke the ball, and B, fix those red zone deficiencies that Dallas had to endure last year. If I remember correctly, they finished somewhere like 29th or 30th in the league, which is terrible. And I personally think that's why Scott Linehan got fired. You look on the defensive side of the ball, think they finished number 7th in the league as it relates to total defense. Chris Richard is exactly what that team needs. Chris Richard is exactly what that defense needs. You got Rod Marinelli, who has the title of defensive coordinator, but Chris Richard runs that team and he calls those plays. He gets those guys ready to play. Now, one thing that probably does worry me, just as the start of the season, is the hangover. And when I say hangover, I mean there are a few guys who were nicked up, banged up, who didn't play in the preseason, who didn't really participate in training camp. D-Law, he was hurt. I think Malik Collins missed some time, and I expect a really big breakout year from him. Byron Jones missed a lot of time. Zeke, of course, we know about him. So there are some guys at some key positions who are going to need to catch up, So after the first month of it, because I think they break the season down in quarters, 4-game quarters. And and the objective is to win those quarters. So the first 4 games, I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas went 2-2. But it's what you do after that. If you can weather the storm as it relates to everybody getting caught up, as it relates to what you see, what you want to call in-game shape, when you see Kellen Moore get more adjusted to his role as offense coordinator, I give him the first quarter of the season, those first 4 games. After then, it's put up a shut-up time. I don't see nothing that's going to derail. I don't see nothing that should derail this team. I don't want to say nothing that's going to, because you never know. Because ask yourself, what separates Dallas from a New Orleans Saints? What separates Dallas from a Minnesota Viking, who I think is going to have a better year this year? What do you think separates Dallas from a Los Angeles Rams? Those answers may be different depending on who you ask, but it's not much. I think New Orleans and the Rams have superior coaching. You know, while we at it, what separates Dallas from the Philadelphia Eagles? Because they've done the right things. They've pulled some triggers to make that team better to get back on the Super Bowl path. You see what I'm saying? What separates Dallas from Philadelphia? Are the Philadelphia Eagles really much more talented than Dallas? They play the same goddamn schedule. They play the same opponent, and they are widely picked to win the division. Why? Think about that. I just ran it off to you. 10 first-round picks, 14 if you consider talent, coming out of college at that time. I gave you top 10 players by position that are on just this team alone. What separates Dallas from these teams? Probably coaching, especially with the Rams and the Saints. Maybe a Pro Bowl quarterback when you look at the Saints, the Rams, and I guess the Eagles. And I'm not with that chatter about, because, on social media, there's always a fuss about who's better, Carson Wentz or Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has won more games than Carson Wentz. He's said to be more available because he's not injury prone. But the more talented quarterback is Carson Wentz, and it's by a pretty big margin, if you ask me. All of those are excuses. Yeah. Even if you think that Sean Payton is just that much better of a coach than Jason Garrett, and he is. Even if you think Sean McVay is just that much better at X's and O's than Jason Garrett, he is. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. Look at all the money you're shelling out for this team. Look at all the money you're paying these guys. Guys getting $100 million contracts. Guys getting overpaid. You know who you are. It's put up a shut up time. This team is healthy going into the season. This team know what they need to do going into the season. Again, they've gotten some playoff experience under their belt going into this season. There are no fucking excuses. If you don't get it done this year, number one, let's take a look at why. Number two, what are you going to do to either get over this hump or blow this fucking team up? Blowing this team up isn't an option just strictly based off the contracts and the duration of those contracts that are laid on this team. But something has to change. If it is Jason Garrett's fault, you knew it was his fault last year. So why didn't you fire him? Like, if you think this man can get you over the hump, you would have extended him. You didn't. Jason Garrett I'm speaking of. He's coaching for his job. How many coaches have won Super Bowls that were coaching for that job? I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But if you didn't think he could get you to the promised land, he should have been gone before the season even started. It's just my opinion. Put up a shut-up time. Again, this team, they do have areas of opportunity, and I already outlined them. You got the strong safety position. You got the putrid play calling that was done inside the red zone. They don't get a lot of takeaways. Things like this. These are things that you see Super Bowl winning teams thrive at, things you see Super Bowl winning teams do on a consistent basis. And that's just in everything I spoke about was in the NFC. Not even talking about what we see in the AFC. To whereas you could argue Kansas City probably got better. You look at the additions on the team. Goddamn Patriots. This video is being dropped on the same day that the Patriots signed Antonio Brown. So again, you have Antonio Brown, Demaryius Thomas, Julian Edelman, and Josh Gordon. I remember my cousin was telling me, it was already going to be difficult to beat them. Now it's almost impossible. So we're not even talking about those teams over there in the AFC. We're just talking about it in the NFC. If you want to talk about the AFC, we can. What separates you from a New England Patriot or a Kansas City Chief? Probably the quarterback. Which again, this is why so much pressure is on Dak Prescott. You can't fuck this up this year. You can't fuck this up this year and expect to go into the offseason having a conversation about $40 million. Because all roads are going to point back to you. All fingers are going to point back to you. Okay, great. You're available. You retired Tony Romo. What have you done for us lately? You're a great team leader. What have you done for us lately? I don't know how much being liked gets you a Super Bowl, but I'm going to assume not that much because he is a great team leader, right? He takes accountability. Everybody in the locker room loves him. Fine. What do you have to show for that? Because if they overachieve in the regular season, meaning I'm talking about 13 and 3, 14 and 2, and they underachieve in the playoffs, meaning they lose their first game or don't reach the Super Bowl, that's a bargaining chip that Steve and Jerry are going to have against him when it's time to negotiate. Now, okay, think about this. If I walk at the end of my rookie deal, who the fuck you going to replace me with? That's what he has in his back pocket, right? But now we're talking about dollar amount. We're talking about duration of contract. We're talking about guaranteed money. They can argue that since you've been here, you really have nothing to show for it. Nothing. A few division titles, whoop the fucking do. Who gives a shit about division titles? We want the whole kit and caboodle. We want a goddamn Super Bowl. Jerry is not here for a long time, so he doesn't have time for a bad time. he can roll over and croak tomorrow for all we fucking know, because he looks older and older every time he gets his ass in front of a goddamn camera. He doesn't have time to wait. Either you're the man to take us here or you're not. It's just that fucking simple. He's probably average as it relates to his capabilities and what he can do on the field. Probably. But what sets him apart is his heart, his fight, his determination, his work ethic. As ability, he probably is middle of the pack. But when you look at his leadership qualities and things he's willing to do to win, again, I believe he's a fucking warrior. How is that going to get you a Super Bowl? I think that's a question that needs to be asked. I think that's very important to this equation. There are no fucking excuses. If Dallas doesn't show immense improvement, and when I say immense, you went to the second round of the playoffs last year, right? So immense would be Super Bowl, or at least come to the fucking game, be a participant in the game. If they don't show immense improvement, somebody did something wrong somewhere. Will Clay has done a great job at accumulating talent for this team via the draft. Great job. The coaches who are in place have done a great job at developing them. But something's wrong. If this team doesn't show vast improvement, somebody or something is wrong. It's easy to have Jason Garrett as a scapegoat. Easy. And I'm not saying he may not be the proper person to point the finger at. But you're paying these guys. Are you paying the right guys? When you're vetting these coaches, are you vetting the right coaches? Is the problem the head of the fucking state? A lot of questions that need to be asked. But again, there are no fucking excuses. I don't want to hear shit about this team was better. I don't want to hear shit about we were out coached. I don't want to hear shit about they have a better roster. I don't want to hear shit about they have more experience. None of that shit matter. Because it's put up a shut up time. When you line up across this goddamn team, what separates you from it? Is this team really just that much better than you? Are they just that much better coach? Is their will to win just that much more than yours? We're going to find out. That's all the time I got. Want to thank you all for listening. Want to thank you all for watching it. Hit those like buttons for me, man. Hit those subscribe buttons for me. We're going to come back sometime probably in a few weeks, man, just to, I don't want to say dissect, but review what we've seen over the last few weeks as it relates to what we're going to see probably in the first quarter and a half, somewhere in there. If I need to drop a video before then just to discuss something, I will. I'd appreciate it if you all tuned in. Again, hit those like buttons, hit those subscribe buttons. You are officially off the hot seat. Until next time, y'all be good.